great to be here. It's great to be home. I'm actually a Lancaster native. Graduated from J.P. McCaskey High School here, and Penn State University, Altoona campus, and the main campus. I'm going to start off with a little story. It was 2 years ago. I was in my home in Mozambique, Africa, sleeping, and I was awakened by my wife, Terry, here. She was screaming my name. She was outside. She had been returning home from with my youngest son, and we were hosting a high school missions team, which we do quite often. And so I got out of bed in my boxers. I grabbed my nunchucks in one hand, the taser in the other hand, went running down the hallway, out the front door, only to be greeted by a man with an AK-47, probably about this close, pointed at my head, screaming at me. And so I dropped my weapons. He actually wore the nunchucks around his neck the whole time, and I love those things, But he proceeded to walk me around the house, actually pushing me with the gun barrel to find the keys to the cars that he would eventually steal. And I couldn't find them. So I yelled out to my wife, who was on the driveway. Another man was keeping my wife and family submission on the driveway. I'm like, Terry, where are the keys? Where are the keys? And she's like, Don, I tell you to put them in one location, and you never do that. Someday you're going to need them. You never listen to me. And the guy is giving me a death count. He's literally counting down the end of my life. And he gets down to 0, 3, 2, 1, 0. And I look at him, he looks at me, and he starts counting again, fortunately. He did eventually get the keys, and he went off, stole our cars, never to be seen again. And I tell you that story because Søren Kierkegaard, 19th century theologian, Danish, he said, the key is to find a purpose, whatever it truly is that God wills me to do. It's crucial to find a truth which is true to me, to find the idea for which I'm willing to live and die for. And I had found that idea, and I was willing to live and die for it. It didn't faze me that this guy came in. We just kept right on going. It actually galvanized me. I want to tell you about that idea. It started when I was an employee at Hershey's. Now I actually work for Kunzler Meats here in Lancaster as their engineer. Went up to Hershey. I was a turnaround guy for them. 13 years, just about a new job every year, going to bring innovation to different parts of the company. And the last job was in cocoa. So I was director of cocoa operations, buying the cocoa for the company. That got me into Africa, and you see the second picture there. The other two pictures are Milton Hershey. What I loved about Milton Hershey was their philanthropic culture. Milton Hershey gave the fortune and the company to a orphan school, of which my father-in-law graduated in 1955. I have had a hot air balloon for 20 years. I used to always try and land on the properties so I could give the kids rides and also have them help me put the balloon away. But it was just so there's self-serving interest. It was just a neat environment to be in. That job going, though, to Africa for the first time, it's in 2004. It completely wrecked me to see the devastating poverty. And Hershey doesn't deal with the farmers. I was just there doing an assessment of the crop to determine whether we should be buying in the market or not. But to see the abject poverty, the kids with buckets on their head walking way down the road when water was underneath, the tattered and torn clothes, the mud huts, it was just something that when I came back, I was like, this is really bothering, especially to have a lifestyle of significant wealth. And so I got done with Hershey. I actually built a very large cocoa processing factory down in Philly for a bunch of investors, as CEO starting up $100 million in sales. And that got sold to the largest chocolate maker in the world without me knowing about it. So I was done. I was done with corporate. I was done with a lot of things. And I decided I'm going to go into maybe ministry. And so I actually just took a couple years off, and much to my wife's concern, and I completely surrendered, not knowing what was next. And I did a lot of different ministry things. I actually developed a life coaching program for the NFL. We were working with John Mayer and the New York Giants. But I spent a lot of time in the woods and just in quiet solitude. And let me tell you, God really becomes very clear. Not audibly, but he becomes very clear. Almost audibly in your mind. And one thing that came very, very loud and clear to me was building food factories in third world nations to bring lasting economic transformation. And so I decided to be obedient to that call, even though I didn't want to do it. And when God calls, you become obedient. And little did I know the abundant life that he was going to give me when I thought it was really all about giving everything up. And what we did is my wife and I sold everything. We moved to Mozambique, Africa. We split our family apart. We had some kids. One stayed in high school, Delaware County Christian School in Philadelphia, where my wife taught. And then my daughter was at Gordon College up near Boston. And then our youngest son came with us. But we formed the Sunshine Nut Company in Mozambique, Africa. And it not only is a company, but it was a business model. We mentioned the triple bottom line, double bottom, single bottom line. Most companies are single bottom line profit. And now corporate social responsibility is the triple bottom line, which is financial and it's environmental and social. I've gone beyond that. I wrote an article for Forbes saying we're doing a quadruple bottom line business, and it's an intentional transformational element. And what we do is we hire adult orphans who are coming out of the Children's Center we support, and we train them to be leaders in business. That's one aspect. 90% of our profits of the company go back to the poor and orphan in Mozambique. 30% go to orphan care, to things that are really needed. 30% go to the farming communities and hand-up projects. And then there's a growth component, a forced growth component of 30% to go and do other food companies, because Africa is just filled with all kinds of small farm holders that need markets for their crops. And so the objective is to spread this concept and the Sunshine approach in a lot of different areas. And we're dealing with the universities. So a lot of different aspects to the Sunshine approach. But let me go into it. This is actually the vision diagram. The hub of this model is an engine of transformation, which is a food company. For this particular first company, it's roasted nuts, okay, and roasted cashews in particular, because Mozambique used to be number one in cashews before a 15-year civil war and a lot of bank policies that decimated the whole industry. We're trying to revive that and bring it back to number one. But the Sunshine Nut Company is located in Matola. It's a very small factory that we converted. It's a world-class factory, all the latest food safety regulations, the best equipment, which I pulled out of a lot of U.S. companies. And one of our objectives there, this little facility can do about $20 million in sales, but it only can do a certain type of product and really crank it. We've got a lot of land that we can put in a larger facility, which we have plans to do so, given the reception is so good. But there's our employees. Most of them have come out of the Children's Center we support. They're amazing employees. And I've managed some Hershey chocolate factories, one with 700 employees. These employees are really wonderful, and they're ambitious. They're excited. This is Benaria Fumo. Okay, so we promoted almost immediately 5 or 6 total. Now it's 5 because Benario has been promoted further into lead positions. And Benario, when he was younger, his father died, his mother abandoned him. He went to live with his grandparents who beat him regularly. So he ran away, went out onto the streets of Maputo, the capital city, and he was being mentored by one of the worst criminals downtown. A woman came and offered him a home in their children's center. He went. And then he spent quite a number of years there. But then I hired Benario 18 months ago. And Benario has gone from a troubled, abandoned teen to the production manager for Sunshine Nut Company. It's a world-class facility putting out some of the freshest, tastiest cashews. And they're going into some of the finest retailers in the world. So Benario has been a great example of what we're trying to do. But there's quite honestly many others. I have so many to choose from. Jito here on the left, he's a born industrial engineer. Everything I give him to do, he finds the best way to do it. You know, and I'm an industrial engineer by degree. I love what he does. You know, for a picture, he just can't have a normal picture. He's got to set up a whole display. Then Nuna is another wonderful employee. All of them are good. Ida is our quality lead, so she's been training to be a quality manager as well. The first of the 90% of the proceeds is broken down into thirds. It's orphanages. And it takes after the Milton Hershey concept. There's 1.6 orphans out of a total of 25 million people in Mozambique. Most of those orphans grow up with little opportunity. So what these employees can do is go back and say, hey, do well in school, do this, there is hope, there is opportunity, look at what we're doing. And I hope to grow the company to supply all of them with jobs. But my wife and I, we are on the ground at the orphanages. Most of our spare time is at 4 or 5 orphanages around our house. And when we pull up, you know, you got 100 kids running screaming. And like 98 of them are yelling, Mama Terry, Mama Terry. And I get a couple stragglers saying, hey, Papa Don, how you doing? You know. But Terry is my director of social impact. She is coordinating a lot of different things at the orphanages. And our intent was to give to the orphanages to things that they really need. Most places and most entities come and they say, well, we'd like a playground, or we want an addition, something that we can put our name on, feel good, you know. And really, from month to month, they don't have the money to feed the kids rice and beans. So we're kind of going where the needs are the greatest, and as long as the company does well, those funds are going to be going not only to do that, but say, hey, you're going to get this set amount, so if you want to take on more kids, you can do that because there's such a need. But we had something unintended happen last year. One of my employees brought to our attention 3 children. You see them up in the left-hand side. 3 children, Cecilia, who was 12 years old at the time, with Madalena on her right and Antonio on her left. Their father died a tragic car accident. Their mother committed suicide, but not before sending him out for bread. The children came back, found their mother hanging there. And then their landlords came, kicked the kids out on the streets, and that's when we heard about them. We quickly, my wife wrote a blog, and we had money from our friends to buy them a house, which you see the house right here. And so my employees pitched in, volunteered. We put electric, we put water, we painted it, we put a bathroom. We filled it with all kinds of neat furniture. And we even filled it with a woman to take care of them. And so we're combining widows and orphans together to make family units in Mozambique. And the government is loving this because they don't like the big corralled 200 kids with little supervision. They want the kids to grow up in Mozambican culture in a family environment. So we're starting to do that. And it's been a wonderful experience. It takes about $300 a month to support this family. And so that's something that we hope to sprinkle sunshine houses all over the countryside. And you see the picture. Now Cecilia, you know, she's 13 years old now. You know, her mother, before she died, met with her friend who did her hair, and the friend thought the mother was joking about committing suicide, but she said, you know, the 2 kids go here, the 2 younger, but Cecilia, she's pretty enough, she can make it out on the streets as a prostitute. So that was her mother's intention for Cecilia. When we met Cecilia, I asked her what you wanted to be when you grew up, and she said, I'd like to be a lawyer, and I'd like to help people in Mozambique who can't afford help. And so I had Penn State read an article I wrote for Forbes, and they quickly, that's my wife and I's alma mater, they quickly sent some teams, and now they're sending teams for 10 years doing all kinds of projects out in the bush with us. But when the first team came and saw Cecilia, they're like, wow, we would love to have her as a foreign student at Penn State. So I love that idea, and there will be a lot of other opportunities for that type of thing. So if Messiah is interested in a foreign student, I've got a whole bunch that I could line up. And what we're doing is we're putting Cecilia through English lessons, and we're going to enroll her in a private school so she gets a better education to prepare for U.S. University. But that type of dream that she has is a dream fit for the Sunshine Approach. God's heart, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless, is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. You know, I didn't really intend to fulfill that scripture, but in this quietness of solitude and in prayer and everything, this became very clear to me that this was God's heart. And I actually didn't know about the scripture until someone pointed it out after the model. You know, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And what we're seeing a lot of what we do is God's heart. The second 30% is in the villages. And we got a lot going on, planned to go on in the villages because we're putting mini factories soon there. But, you know, it's hand-up programs. It's not handouts where you give inflated money to the farmers. We will give them fair pricing for their cashews. But then if we, in turn, get a profit, 30% of those profits will go back in the form of handouts. And there's all kinds of opportunities. Every community is different, we're finding. We decided, we just started last year, we're not even profitable yet. We wanted to start helping. So we called the government, we said, hey, this subsidized tree planting program, we said, we'd like to buy 1,000 cashew trees. We're going to go up with our employees, drive up, and we're going to plant them for free among all these small farmholder families as gestures of love. And so 22 of us piled in a van, 3 vans, and drove up. And on the way up, the government called us back, and they said, you guys are crazy, in a good way. Said, you know, we've just sat here and met, and we're not only going to donate the trees, but we're going to deliver them to the villages you want to go to. And then we'd actually like to show up and help you plant them. And that was on a Saturday morning. We had the government officials show up. You see them on the left here, the villages. We planted 1,000 trees that first trip. My employees, there were about 18 of them who've been in children's centers. They go from being cast out members of society to rock stars, not only with the villagers but with the government officials. I now sample with them in the grocery stores. Initially, they couldn't even talk to people. They just had their head down until people started talking to them about this amazing product and the fact that it's going and exporting. And so they became rock stars in the supermarkets as well. And now I can't get them out of there. They want to sample all the time because it just feeds them with what they need. We did another trip, 500 more trees, and then the next day we did another trip, 500 more trees. Our plan is 50,000 trees among 25,000 small farmholder families. And these families, you know, they're not farmers, they're subsistence farmers. They farm to survive, okay? And a tree starts giving cashews in 3 years, but it provides an income for them for 50 years, okay? So trees are important for them. These types of villages, 80% of the population, the average annual income, cash income, is $31 per year. And when you have to buy a uniform for your kids at $5, a lot of them don't go to school because they can't afford the uniform that's required to go into school. And that's where my wife comes along. You know, we're doing some neat things. One of the things we're going to do is we've already formed a seamstress shop, and as we get more and more sunshine houses, those widows we're going to teach to be employed in the shops, and they can crank out uniforms. We're currently having our employee uniforms done by a seamstress shop. But that will allow these children up on the left, you see them in their uniforms, they can go to school. My wife's walking around with kids with no uniforms. On the right is a new school that was built. I don't know if you can see the big rock where my wife is standing. That's the teacher's rock. And then there's a bunch of small rocks for the students. So there's a lot of opportunity for improvements. Malnutrition is another big thing in the villages. You know, governments come and they build these beautiful clinics, but yet there's no medicines. And we talked to the doctors with 100 people lined up outside. And we've done some medical outreach with their parents and relatives, aunt and uncle. They just come from everywhere, and they'll stay there all day to get medical treatment. But I asked him, what do you do? And he's like, there's not much I can do. So we walk out, we walk down the road, and this boy in the middle, being held by his grandmother, he had malaria probably. He's burning up. Simple $5 treatment, he'd be living. I'm not sure if he lived or died or what, but it was a simple $5 treatment. This is all over the place. On the right, you see my wife up there. The girl on the left, his name is Faustina. She was discharged from the hospital, told to go home. The doctors told her mom to take her home to die. The mother brought her to Iris Ministries that has a clinic, one of the orphanages we support. And you see Faustina being held by my wife just 32 days later. Same girl, just medicine, formula, a lot of tender loving care and prayer. These clinics do wonders with hardly anything, and so it's worthy of our support. Education, I mentioned Penn State. We're looking at teaching food manufacturing in the institutes so that they can fill their own, they can grow and have markets and fill their own supermarket shelves and potentially export as well. And I mentioned Penn State. I just didn't think Penn State coming was good enough. Why not spread that collaboration? So I had meetings with the largest university in Mozambique, Eduardo Mondlane University, 35,000 students, with Penn State, and they decided to collaborate over the years to bring the best of what each can bring to the table and have a meaningful interaction. It's something that the Mozambique, they were all excited about. They said they have all these partnerships. When we proposed what we said, the dean said to us, all the other stuff is lip service. We really don't have any relationships. What you're proposing is something that's truly impactful. So we were pretty excited to hear that, some truth come out. And we're looking to nurture that relationship. One of the main things we want to do is go vertically integrated with our company, and that is to do primary processing. Roasting, we have 50 employees that roast, okay, at that little factory in Matola. With that comes the need for 1,000 people to shell those cashews up country. And then in order to supply those shelling factories, that's 50,000 small farmhouses. So you see the degree of affected lives. As we grow those roasting employees to 100, 200, 300, 500, then you've got this exponential impact of people having livelihoods enhanced and transformed. And it's not just that we want to put we want to put the factories. The large factories are needed in order to supply large companies in containers. With a company in-house or in-country like ours, small companies can open up. But what we want to do is we want to break the traditional 2,000 employee factory, because those people, their names are known. They live around the area, so they come from all over, and they live away from their homes for 50 weeks out of the year just to have a job. And there's a lot of societal issues because of that. What we want to do is break that factory apart, put the first stage of the factory in the villages. So we want to put a lot of little mini factories in the villages to supply not only their farmer income, which they can continue farming, but then some additional factory income. And the thing about that, if we do that, what we can do is attach a center of excellence to each mini factory. It's a large room, that we can run a trading post. I've got Opportunity International and Whole Planet Foundation excited about microfinancing, health services. We can run education, not just for the farmers, but for the community, like malaria and AIDS, and also even train the teachers, to be better teachers. So there's a lot of programs we can run out of this, including health services, all kinds of things. So we're looking to do the mini factories. We have gotten so much reception that the Prime Minister had a building that's a factory that's been vacant for 20 years that he gave to some Indian guy. When we were up there, he had his lawyer call the Indian guy. He would like to get that back and give it to us. In addition to that, we're being shown plots of land, to do things. So when they asked me how much land I needed, they were thinking tens of thousands of acres, this plantation farming, that uproots farmers all over. And I'm like, no, I just need enough room for a factory to be able to buy off of all the farmers in the area. They just love that. the fact that our interest is in making people who are farming to survive become people who are farming to thrive. And the last thing is to establish the brand, and we have Chad in the room, Chad and his wife. I had set up a great relationship with Whole Foods. Actually, Whole Foods, about 3 years ago, contacted me, and they had contacted Hershey. They'd found out about what I was doing. They actually asked Hershey, I think, is this guy capable of doing what he's going to do? And they must have said yes, because I had a visit from a senior VP in my factory. I had to buy plastic table and chairs, to sit, and we sat there for 5 hours talking, and he knew everything. This guy's on all the boards of the fair trades and everything. He's very, very argumentative, and I finally said, could I finish my presentation? And he got quieter and quieter. And that, at the end of it, he's like, well, you need to get all these fair trade certifications. You need to do all this. I'm like, why would I stoop to fair trade certification? Why don't they come up to my level and put a Sunshine Approach trademark or Sunshine Approach emblem on their packages? He didn't like that too much, But he retired, which is good. But it led to a very good relationship. In fact, I was just out in Anaheim where, we got a last-minute booth among 6,500 booths. It was the Expo West, the natural food show, the biggest in the world. And we get in there last minute with our booth, and we have so many people coming up to us, and they finally said, it was 65,000 attendees, we're all professionals. And they finally said, do you know you're being highlighted in the morning intro meetings as one of the truly innovative companies at this show? I'm like, we're not even in the brochures, we're not in any literature or anything, and they're highlighting us, and that has led. In fact, this trip, I was in to see Ahold yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and the day before is Kroger corporate headquarters in Cincinnati. I'm going out to Costco corporate headquarters in Seattle, and Walgreens in Chicago. I go back down to Whole Foods in Austin, and I think Bazoota's is being set up in Connecticut, and a number of others that might come on. So there's a lot of interest. I'm actually going back to Kroger. I blew them away a little bit, I met with the corporate social responsibility VP, and I just took her off the grid because it's just something so new, and I think really exciting, because it's pure hope, opportunity, and transformation. I use the acronym HOT. It's a hot crop. Cashews are roasted with hope, opportunity, and transformation. But I met with Chad, and I got in there, fluke, we were all set to go with Whole Foods, and Chad moved so quick that he threw Whole Foods off guard. By the time I met with him, I think we were in the stores just 2 or 3 months later. All 800 stores of Ahold, so Giant, Stop and Shop, and Martin's. And the neat thing about that is Whole Foods quickly followed with deciding to put me in their stores out of category, which is almost unheard of. We're in probably half of the stores across the country, but they're looking to get us in more. So some great things happening because Ahold made that first decision. And all of this, while I give Chad credit, it really is God. There's been a lot of promises. There's a lot of people. You mentioned about that idea that comes from God. After I decided to do this, I've had like 50 people that know nothing about me come up to me and say, I have a word from the Lord from you. I'm like, okay, sure, And when they started talking about going to Africa and food companies and all this and where it's going to go, I'm like, wow. So I said, hold up, stop. I get out my phone, I put it on record. I have over 50 people recorded, probably near 100, that have come up and given me words of encouragement and edification, all about what I'm doing. And that's what allows me to take a bullet and die doing this. When you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is God and this is His idea, then everything else doesn't matter, And so I thank Chad for giving that first, to being obedient to God. He thinks he did it on his own, but he really heard from the Holy Spirit that day, and moved on that. We're in the stores. we've got a lot of neat things going. My daughter up on the right, that's a Stop and Shop store in Boston area. She's broke down crying in the aisles, because it's been a real struggle for our family to do this. She picks up my son at Gordon, and my son's wearing the same shirt all the time. And she's like, Brent, don't you have any other shirts? And he's like, actually, no, I don't. But I got this one at Goodwill, and I rock in it, And it's just the whole family is committed to this. And for her to be crying, she had to compose herself, but you can see her red eyes. But it's been a very good experience. You see the trade booth down on the right. Who's watching? I intentionally didn't go out. I wrote an article for Forbes and one for Christian Science Monitor. Bono's group, one.org, is really excited. They've run a number of features. They initially wanted me to write one article, and I said, how many words? He said 750 or less. I'm like, I can't do anything in 750 words. I said, well, you're going to have to, and it's only one time. So the article ran, I think it was about 2 years ago, and I was down in D.C. They invited me in, everyone greeted me, and they're like, man, our 7 million readership loves this. Can you write every month for us? And I'm like, I thought you said that. Actually, I didn't say that. I'm like, okay. And I haven't been able to do that. And I don't want to just write. And I didn't want to write beforehand, and I don't want to speak. I'm being invited to speak early on, and I'm like, I don't want to talk theory. I want to talk reality. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm finally starting able to talk to you about different things happening. But as we go forward, there are so many things happening, so many intricacies and things, which I just love doing. But it's going to be mind-blowing to be able to report what we're doing. And, the G8 countries formed Grow Africa, which is, the 8 countries forming a team that would work with 8 African countries to stomp out world poverty, starting with agriculture in Africa. And, all the multinationals joined and the African presidents. And they called me up from Switzerland. And they're like, why haven't you submitted your letter of intent? I'm like, who are you? I'm busy. I really don't need this. And they gave me a letter of intent. And they accepted me, and now they pay my way. They want me to speak. This morning I got an invite to speak there. And this is, all the CEOs of the multinational companies. It's the African presidents. It's the leaders of the banks. The first year I went was in Cape Town. And it's paired with the World Economic Forum in Africa. And so everyone's there, And, I used to be someone. I was an executive at Hershey. So I'd walk around and shake hands, and what are you doing? They'd be like, oh, great, yeah, sure. Let me know how that one works. And they quickly look over, like, who else can they talk to? In the second year, when I went, I presented, and they're like, oh my goodness, crap, this guy's actually starting to make it work. And this year, the guys in Switzerland want to start brokering my product all over Europe. These are McKinsey and USAID and people, and they're just so excited because they say, Don, we're trying to get the multinationals to maybe do 1 or 2 of our objectives out of, I don't know how many they have. It's like, you're not only doing all of our objectives, but you've got more on top of that. So you're like our poster child for what we want to see happen. And so, they've featured me in the annual reports, spotlighted me. And the progress is online with what I thought it would be. So that's exciting. I mentioned the Quadruple Bottom Line. I want to just, I would just want to explain what that is. Okay, so the financial bottom line, and we've got the environmental and social, which is corporate social responsibility. And I equate social, there's more interpretations of this, but I equate social to be giving them a fish. You've heard the saying, give them a fish, they eat for a day, teach them how to fish, they eat for a lifetime. And that's like Tom's shoes. You buy a pair of Tom's shoes, they give a pair of shoes. Well, I don't know how good that is to be giving all the time, especially shoes. Well, why don't you set up a company in the country to provide jobs for people to make shoes for this, rather than give the shoes. But I take it further to transformational. And I like to equate that to, okay, we're not going to just give them a fish, we're going to teach them to fish, but what if there's no fish? Or what if there's no market? So it's really providing a fishing pole and a fishing hole with unlimited fish, and then having 12 sushi restaurants right next door, to buy the fish. So it's that type of transformation that we're talking about. And the engine of that transformation is a food company. This is where I play a video we did for Grow Africa last year. So I played this to show, we asked our employees, actually I wasn't there, it was a young intern that came with my production manager that put together this video for Grow Africa.
My name is Binario, and I want to share a little bit of my story with you. My mom, she used to do a business, so because of that, she took me and my youngest brother to live with my grandparents. But my grandparents used to beat me up a lot.
My father, he lives as me and my brother.
We had a time that we were so sick in my family.
Every day I was living with pains.
I didn't know where my food come from.
I began to support myself when I was 15.
So my mom took us for Irish ministry. So there I have food, I have school.
I met Papa Don when I think it 2010.
I met Don Larson.
I feel like I have more hope.
Everything started changing.
So when he came in the aisles to explain us about all the program of the job, I went there, I listened to him talking with all of us there, and I said, no, I want this opportunity for me.
And for sure, I said yes.
My name is Aida, and I am one of the workers of the Sunshine.
My name is Roysta. I work in Sunshine Night Company.
My name is Toto.
My name is Ivania.
Januário Mário Mavi.
Julia Albertina.
Nelson.
Salzira.
Isvanelio.
My name is Alberto Julião Novella. I'm a happy and proud worker of Sunshine Nut Company.
My name is Don Larson. I'm founder and CEO of Sunshine Nut Company. This isn't business as usual as most people think. While we're a company to be profitable, what's more important to us is to transform people's lives through the profits that we earn. We moved here. We bought this factory in 2011. We spent 3 years renovating and equipping it. People said it couldn't be done. Well, here it is. And they couldn't understand why we're doing this. We did this for people like our employees, talented young men and women who needed jobs. We did this for orphans and abandoned children who needed people that care. We did this for cashew farmers who needed someone they could trust to provide them with a market and give them fair pricing. While our factory might not be very big, consider this. By employing 50 people here at our factory, we provide jobs for 1,000 people shelling those cashews out in the rural villages, and we provide a needed market with fair pricing for 50,000 farmers. These farmers are the poorest of the poor. And we're not thousands of miles away either. Our roasting factory is just down the road from these farmers and the trees where our cashews grow, which provides a fresh, crisp taste experience. People are saying we are redefining what a cashew should taste like, and that's also transformation. Africa has so much potential. Cashews are just the beginning of many sunshine companies yet to come, and all of them will provide hope, opportunity, and transformation.
For me, I see Sunshine as an open door for me. I have more hope. I have got more opportunity.
I hope to teach other people, and I want to be a part of the people that will make this company to grow up. This is my hope.
Since I work in Sunshine, give me a lot of hope and hope for my daughter and my wife.
I have hope to to the future?
I feel valuable.
I'm really happy. This is good for me.
I feel good.
My name is
And we are Sunshine Company.
You know, I mentioned about our whole, our whole experience. You know, John 10:10 says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." You know, it's a very common verse. You know, we've seen that. We've seen the ravages of the enemy in this country for, you know, it's been centuries, but decades, and now we see it in what we're trying to do. You know, there's a spiritual element to this, a spiritual warfare element. But the main thing is that second part. I'd never understood, you know, about the abundant life. You know, I sold my Porsche, my hot air balloon, I sold my street bike, my dirt bikes, my RV, my house with a pool, sold it all off. Now my wife lives in very modest means. I take a modest salary. I don't pay my wife anything. Yet. You know, but we have 20-year-old vehicles. She gets the cool four-wheel drive. I get the family van, you know. But I never imagined how abundant our life would be. And it's an abundance of seeing lives transformed. And it's not just the lives of the villagers and the lives of our employees and the lives of the orphans. It's our lives, our family life. You know, we've changed. In fact, my son came back. He was with us for 3 years in Mozambique. He came back the intent was to spend 2 years back in high school to finish out his degree. He spent one there, and you know, he doesn't fit in quite like he did, because he's been exposed to so many different things that he's like, I really think I want to come back with you guys and finish out my high school in Mozambique, you know. And I think that's not such a bad thing, quite honestly. We would love to have him back, you know. We didn't expect to be empty nesters so quick. You know, my daughter, she makes it back as much as she can. Our son, this is Ermenina, and she is, she calls Brent her dad, you know, so now we are grandparents, and she calls us Ovo, which is grandparents, every time we go, which I'm not ready for that just yet either. William as well. This is a child that my daughter supports monthly. We have a Sunshine Approach Foundation we just formed. So the company is going to have to give, the LLC that I have will have to give a portion to a charity. So we formed a charity not only for the company money but for outside money, because we're finding more and more people want to donate because of the high impact that we, and very actually zero administration fee right now. So how can you be part of the mission? Brand ambassadors, you know, I put this in there for other presentations. We got the new charity. Don't just buy a product, but help us get into the stores like Chad did, you know. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for giving me some time to talk to you. And I hope this, you know, I think I want to go back, all the way back, to the initial slide that I had, which was Soren Kierkegaard, and I think the stimulating question is for all of you is the key. This Soren Kierkegaard, I think when I first saw this, I was like, wow, you know, I can relate to this. Key is to find a purpose, whatever it truly is that God wills me to do. It's crucial to find a truth which is true to me, you know. To find the idea which I'm willing to live and die for, you know, and it doesn't have to be sell everything to go to Africa, you know. There are things, we're all called to different things, and what is it that God's asking you to do and wanting you to do within your community, within your work, within the world? So that's the question I think I'd like to challenge people to think about here. Okay. with that, do we want to take questions? Or?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Questions now.
Yeah.
What current capacity are you at now? Or at what current level of revenues are you at now?
At revenues, we're projecting, we did about 400,000 last year. We're projecting 3 million this year, provided we get on-ramps from some of these other retailers. Yeah. But our capacity at the factory, normally you lay employees off. My employees worked, I think, 30% of the year last year, yet I paid them the entire year. It's one of these things where, I just didn't feel like I wanted to let them go and not pay them. So, we've been taking on and then this year. And I got to tell you, they love coming back. This is not a job for them, They come back and they're a family. We give them a meal. We provide transportation there. But it's just, we play worship music all day. It's a family environment. I just love being in at work. It's a great environment. And I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to have a factory that is more like a family, yet built on high performance and profitability. Any other questions? Yes?
You had mentioned down the road some other sunshine companies?
Yeah. Initially I started out in Tanzania. Doing some free consulting, and I had the Sunshine Approach idea and everything. And the country loved it. I was the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, and so I brought a contingent here to Pennsylvania to see my brother-in-law's spaghetti sauce factory, Del Grosso Foods, and they do salsa, and a bunch of private label and everything. But I showed them the possibilities of tomato processing, into diced tomatoes and tomato paste and things like that. And also dehydration of onion and garlic, which would take, one of these things is the government was people come in to do good, and most of the efforts around the farming was how to farm more productively. And I'm like, are you crazy? Half the crops are rotting in the fields. They don't need to know how to farm productively. These are smart farmers. You take all their crops away, they'll quickly farm more productively and plant more and do things. They needed a market. And so dehydration of vegetables, onion and then garlic, and then tomato processing was another one. And then that forms all, and you can sell that into like General Foods or Campbell's Soup and all. But then you have the basics to form your own retail products. Cocoa is another one. I can take this factory and a concept for cashews, and I can quickly put factories in the other cashew-producing countries of Africa, which would be Ghana, Ivory Coast, Tanzania, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Gambia. And we've done all the hard work, so now we could start up factories very quickly. But if I went to Ghana is or Ivory Coast, that's where all the cocoa is at. And so I know cocoa pretty well, and so a nice single origin, just very high value chocolate would be nice to come out with as well. So, but there's all kinds of ideas. There's fruit. I'm regularly being told about, when I go to these Grow Africa summits now, I've got the other countries coming to me saying, how would you like to come to our country, Ethiopia, and they tell me about the different raw materials, because they just love the concept, so. Yes?
How did you get your factories up and running? Did you use like your own money to finance it, or did you go?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, I did. I've met with so many different people, and I got to tell you, greed comes into it. They see the potential, and what people initially, want to fund me with loans. They're like, yeah, we'll fund you, but then they hear it and you can see it click. And like, what? I want a piece of this. I'm not going to give you a loan. I've decided to take an equity position. And so I've had to struggle along. There's a whole bunch of equity people I call them, they're up on the high power lines. I used to be walking, and then I was kneeling, and then I was crawling. Sometimes I get up and walk, sometimes I can jog, but they're up there waiting for me to drop and call them in, and I'll get as far down the road as I can without needing to take an equity position, because I'm looking at doing things all through the value chain that make no financial sense. as long as I can remain competitive and profitable, if I have to bid up foreign traders to make an example because they exploit the people and only pay a third or a fourth of what the farmers should be getting, but they'll pay twice as much in the areas to put me out of business, well, I'll go up against them. Say, hey, I like that you're paying 40 mets per kilogram when the market's 18. Let's get on the radio and let's do my text and tell all the farmers that Sunshine Nut Company and this trading company is paying twice the value, because that's great for the company. If I had partners who were interested in profit, they'd be like, go to these areas, get your raw materials elsewhere. And by the way, there are people paying half the price. Why don't you look into that? It's just, I don't want to have to deal with that. I want to be able to make the decisions to do the right thing. I'm not here to get rich. I'm here to transform lives. And so all the way through the value chain, if I can do things to change lives, I'll do that within the business model. Okay? But right now, it's been a tough go. You've got to build years of financial history. We've got a nice margin. Not too nice, Chad, by the way, but it's a nice one. It's a nice, comfortable margin. That's a very attractive business plan, But right now I've taken on private loans from friends, at an attractive rate, giving 10%. Yes?
During the 2 years where you were kind of like finding what you wanted to do and making that choice of like what your next step was, what were like the tangible things in Mozambique or in your life that gave you enough hope to take that next step?
Yeah. It was the prophetic words from people. I'm a risk taker, man. And that's why I loved when Hershey had a factory that 5 plant managers had psychological problems before because 3 unions were driving them nuts and they needed to ramp up. They're like, Don, we're grooming you for senior level. We're not putting you near that factory. I'm like, please, I can't wait to be in the room with the union people to see what they do. I just love taking risks, and evidenced by over 1,000 hot air balloon flights and flying airplanes and Porsche. I won't tell you how fast I go in my cars, but the street bikes and the dirt bikes, it all is centered around giving me a thrill. Okay? So I'm pretty risk tolerant, and I made the decision to go, but it has been tough. And there is, we're all pretty spiritual here. There's a very fine line between determining what is God's trials and tribulations to take you and get you on another path. You compare that against the enemy trying to take you down from God's will. They look like the same and feel like the same thing. Okay? But I have very good words directly from prayer from the Lord, but also these words from others make me know without a shadow of a doubt that that's the direction I'm to be going and that this is God's will for my life. So it was those people. And in 1 Corinthians 14 it says, hey, prophecy is for edification and encouragement and everything. Those words I've returned to many and many a time when I probably would have given up because I wouldn't. There's always doubts, It's like, wow, did I really hear that correctly and all? So it's those types of things that have kept me going. But it was a big decision, but one that I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, I don't know where the future goes, but I'm happy to be on the ride,
We have time for one more question.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Yes.
I'm just curious. Obviously, the Lord is very central to what you're doing now. And at what point did you have that transformation experience that you were in corporate America, you were climbing the ladder, and which usually, it's not across the board, but you have everything. You had everything you fully wanted in this life.
Yeah.
So what was it about God's voice or presence or your relationship with Jesus Christ that transformed you?
Yeah, it was the initial, my wife and I became Christians at 29. Now, we went to church and everything, but we prayed the prayer of salvation at 29 with an evangelism explosion team from Hershey Free Church that came to our house. We're like, what did we just do? But there was a change there. Over the years, I grew disinterested in climbing the corporate ladder, and yet I kept being promoted. But it was all about the job and finding satisfaction in what I did. But I would say to my wife, I think God's going to use me to do something big. It was very egotistical. My wife's like, yeah, sure, Don, whatever. But I sensed the Holy Spirit telling me that without, He's talking to us all the time, and you have to tune in onto that radio station and tune out some of the other ones. But, it was one of those things where over the years I kept knowing that I was sitting on the fence. I mean, I went to every Promise Keepers event. I did all the breakfast prayer meetings. We taught parenting courses, growing kids God's way. I mean, we were your Christian, family. Went to, my wife taught at Christian schools, and I just felt I was on the fence, and I made commitments to get off the fence, but I didn't. And then He started making it difficult, the trials and tribulations at that factory that I built. I was able to do it all, but it was tough. And then I got all these job offers. I mean, I had a job offer from Campbell's immediately. That week, I went in after I was let go the day before they sold it. I said, hey, we don't need you, you did a great job. But I went into Campbell's, interviewed with all the senior executives, and they said, we're going to create a senior VP position for you, a center of excellence. It's going to take us a few months. Can you have a few months off? And it was in that time, and with the payout from this other company, that I'm like, hey, I'm going to take some time off. And that's when I went deep, and that's when I surrendered. And then I was tested immediately. Campbell's brought me in. I turned down the position. They brought me in for lunch. They tried to schmooze me. And I told them, some of the things they tried to schmooze me with. I said, well, you might want to try it that way. You might want to do this and this and this. And they said, how much money is it going to take Don Larson to join us? And I remember saying, it's not about the money. I want to help people. And I remember walking down the hallway thinking, I am so crazy. What am I doing, God? And I will tell you, now that I know the will of God is for me to be doing this, boy, makes Jesus and His temptation from the enemy, I'll give you the world. If you just come down and worship me, and then the mammon versus God and all those verses, boy, I'll tell you, all types of opportunities came. And every time we hire someone, they get all kinds of incredible opportunities. It's like, wow, hey, Satan, you're playing that hand too much. You're educating me, people are like, Don, how can you give Don these opportunities? They're so incredible. They got to be from God, because you'll have so much money you can give to the poor and everything. That's not the case for me, So, does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate it.